Imagine trusting the police to protect your savings and valuables, only to find out they're the ones stealing from you. This isn't the plot of a crime novel. It's a true story of greed and betrayal. In Medford, a quiet city in Massachusetts, a group of corrupt police officers pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in U.S. history, stealing $10 million in cash and valuables. These weren't your usual criminals. They were police officers, the very people sworn to uphold the law. They used their authority to carefully plan the robbery and left behind almost no evidence. For months, investigators were completely baffled, unable to find a single clue. So how did these trusted officers turn into criminals? What made them risk everything for a life of crime, and what eventually brought them down? This is the incredible story of Gerald Clemente, a police captain who became the mastermind of this daring heist, and his team of rogue officers who thought they could get away with it all. In the 1980s, Medford was a thriving town. Its economy was booming, businesses were flourishing, and the community enjoyed a sense of prosperity. At the center of this bustling city stood the Depositor Trust Bank, an institution that symbolized security and stability. The bank's vault was considered one of the safest in the country. It was built like a fortress, with 50-centimeter thick concrete walls reinforced with steel. Its doors were massive, made of heavy-duty metal, and equipped with state-of-the-art locking mechanisms. Inside the vault were hundreds of safety deposit boxes rented out to the bank's wealthiest clients, each containing cash, gold, jewelry, and irreplaceable documents. Adding to the security, the vault had a silent alarm system directly linked to the police department. This alarm could detect even the slightest tampering and instantly alert authorities. Yet for all its technological advancements, the bank's security had one glaring oversight. It never accounted for the possibility that the protectors of the law might turn into the perpetrators of crime. Gerald Clemente wasn't always a bad cop. When he first joined the police force, he had high ideals and a strong sense of duty. But his mentor, Crasher, quickly showed him another side of law enforcement, a darker, corrupt side. Crasher was part of a network of officers who covered for each other, shared their ill-gotten gains, and turned a blind eye to wrongdoing. At first, Gerald hesitated, but over time, he realized how easy it was to exploit his position for personal benefit. Slowly, he integrated into this circle of corruption. By the time Gerald rose through the ranks to become a captain, he was deeply entrenched in a web of lies and thefts. Despite his criminal activities, Gerald maintained a stellar public image. He was known as a fearless officer, once capturing an armed gang leader and earning a Medal of Courage. This dual life allowed him to hide his corruption while climbing the ranks of the police force. But by 1980, Gerald had grown tired of petty thefts and small schemes. He wanted one big job, a heist that would set him up for life. And so he began planning what would become one of the most infamous bank robberies in American history: assembling the crew. To pull off a crime of this magnitude, Gerald needed a trusted team. He brought in Tommy, his closest ally on the force, and Joe, another corrupt officer who had proven his loyalty. Next, he enlisted Francis, a former gangster with experience in robberies, and Bucky, a skilled thief and expert in electronics. The plan began months before the robbery. Bucky's first task was to disable the bank's silent alarm system. This required weeks of testing and experimentation. Posing as police officers on patrol, the gang regularly visited the area to test their devices and ensure their actions went unnoticed. Tommy, who had a safety deposit box at the bank, conducted reconnaissance. He memorized the vault's layout, the positions of security cameras, and the types of locks used. This information was crucial for planning their entry. Finally, the team chose Memorial Day weekend for the heist. The long holiday ensured the bank would be closed for 3 days, giving them ample time to complete their mission without interruption. The execution. On the night of Memorial Day, the gang put their plan into action. First, they disabled the bank's alarm system. Bucky used his custom-made device to block the signal, ensuring no alerts would reach the police station. Instead of entering the bank directly, the gang broke into a neighboring shop. From there, they accessed the attic and drilled through a wall to reach the space above the vault. The vault's concrete ceiling was their next challenge. Using dynamite, They blasted a hole through the thick concrete, muffling the explosion with sandbags to avoid drawing attention. Once inside the vault, the gang's excitement quickly turned to frustration. The bank's inner safe, which they expected to contain millions, held only $60,000. Unbeknownst to them, the bank had transferred most of its cash to the Federal Reserve for the holiday weekend. Realizing they couldn't leave empty-handed, the gang turned to the safety deposit boxes. Over the next 2 nights, they broke into as many boxes as possible, eventually collecting $10 million in cash, gold, and jewelry. The beginning of the end. The gang thought they had committed the perfect crime. They left no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no evidence that could directly link them to the robbery. But cracks began to form almost immediately. Gerald had warned his team to remain cautious, but Tommy and Joe ignored him. They started spending recklessly, drawing attention with their newfound wealth. Joe, who was entrusted with the stolen jewelry, began giving pieces away and selling them. Their recklessness came to a head when Tommy confronted Joe, accusing him of jeopardizing their operation. In a heated argument, Tommy shot Joe, triggering a police investigation. When authorities searched Joe's car, they found a bag containing stolen jewelry and drugs. The FBI closes in. With evidence linking Joe to the robbery, the FBI reopened the case. Under pressure, Joe struck a deal with investigators. He revealed the gang's involvement in exchange for immunity. The FBI began piecing together the puzzle, focusing their attention on Gerald. His alibi, which relied on his mistress Barbara, fell apart when she admitted he had returned on the night of the heist, covered in dust. One by one, the gang members were arrested. In court, Barbara testified against Gerald, revealing details about his planning and his boastful remarks about the heist. Justice is served. Gerald, Tommy, Francis, and Bucky were convicted and sentenced to decades in prison. Their carefully crafted plan, which had seemed foolproof, unraveled because of greed, betrayal, and arrogance. The heist that was supposed to be their ticket to a life of luxury became their undoing. Gerald, the mastermind, ended up spending the rest of his life in disgrace, proving that no crime is ever truly perfect. The lesson. This story is a cautionary tale about greed and betrayal. Gerald and his gang believed they were untouchable, but their actions caught up with them. In the end, their arrogance and carelessness ensured their downfall. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more incredible tales of crime and intrigue on our channel.